Okay, we are now into this is the our ninth session, I think. And you can take your Bibles and we'll get right into it. We're going to go to Zechariah chapter 4. Um, this night we're covering the fifth vision that occurred on the 24th day of the 11th month in the second year of Darius that was given to Zechariah at this time. And if you have a syllabus, if you're following with a syllabus, it would be page 41 in your syllabus. So Zechariah 4, 1 through 14, the golden lampstand flanked by two olive trees. This is on this 24th day of the 11th month, the 8 visions that we've been looking at. We've looked at the first 4, and now we are on this number 5, Zechariah chapter 4, the golden lampstand. So I'll first, again, read it, and then we'll go through and look at it. Zechariah 4, verse 1. Then the angel who was speaking with me returned and roused me, as a man who was awakened from his sleep. He said to me, "What do you see?" And I said, I see and behold a lampstand all of gold with its bowl on the top of it, and its 7 lamps on it, with 7 spouts belonging to each lamps, which are on the top of it. Also, 2 olive trees by it, one on the right side of the bowl, and the other on its left side. Then I said to the angel who was speaking with me, "What are these, my Lord?" So the angel who was speaking with me answered and said to me, "Do you not know what these are?" And I said, "No, my Lord." Then he said to me, "This is the word of Yahweh to Zerubbabel, saying, Not by might nor by power, but by my spirit, says Yahweh of hosts. What are you, O great mountain, before Zerubbabel? You will become a plain, and he will bring forth the top stone with shouts of grace, grace to it." Verse 8. Also the word of Yahweh came to me, saying, "The hands of Zerubbabel have laid the foundation of this house, and his hands will finish it. Then you will know that Yahweh of hosts has sent me to you. For who has despised the day of small things? But these 7 will be glad when they see the plumb line in the hand of Zerubbabel. These are the eyes of Yahweh, which range to and fro throughout the earth." Then I said to him, "What are these 2 olive trees on the right of the lampstand and on its left?" And I answered the second time and said to him, "What are the 2 olive branches, which are beside the 2 golden pipes, which empty golden oil from themselves?" So he answered me, saying, "Do you not know what these are?" And I said, "No, my Lord." Then he said, "These are the 2 anointed ones who are standing by the Lord of the whole earth." So that is the chapter 4, the 4th vision. Now let's take a look at it. First of all, I thought this was interesting. This is the 5th vision on this night. It says, "Then the angel who was speaking with me returned and roused me as a man who was awakened from his sleep." Now, if you remember, the first vision, um, the first vision began at night. Back in Zechariah chapter 1, on this night of the 24th day of the 11th month, in the month Shebat, in the second year of Darius, the word of Yahweh came to Zechariah the prophet, the son of Berechiah, the son of Ego, as follows: "I saw at night, and behold, a man was riding a red horse." So I don't know what time of the night that uh, Zechariah started seeing these visions, but it started at night. And it seems to me now, and also, like, you don't know how long how long did it take with each vision? Like, and there's a dialogue there. And then was there time between the visions, like pauses? It sounds to me the way this is written here in chapter 4, where it says the angel who was returned, that there was a pause between the fourth vision and this vision, and it sounds to me like Zechariah fell asleep. Like, it's in the night, and and it's like, he was like, okay, that's a lot, four visions, and then the fourth vision, he's aroused as a man who's waking from sleep. It's like the angel said, "Hey, wake up, we got more visions." Like, so I don't know, but that's what I get. I don't know if that's true, but I kind of think that's what that means, is that he was like, "Wake up, here's another vision," um, and he comes into this vision, the fifth vision. Now, this vision, it's a graphic look. There's a picture that's given here. So I'd like to explore what is it that Zechariah saw. The angel said, "Look up, what do you see?" And then Zechariah describes back to the angel what he sees. Um, the first of all, he says, "I see and behold a lampstand all of gold." So this is the primary central item in this vision. It's the golden lampstand. So I'd like to just before we get into the vision, I'd like to just take a little time and look at the golden lampstand. What did it represent? What was it? What was its purpose? And what does it represent? Um, First of all, you'll see some versions call it a lampstand. Some English versions call it a candlestick, and some English versions call it a menorah. So I was wondering, well, what is the proper term for it? And this, I didn't know this till I studied this. Um, the Hebrew word here is the Hebrew word menorah. Huh. So menorah is a Hebrew word. So it's the Hebrew word menorah, and then the English translation of a menorah is a lampstand or a candlestick. I think any type of candlestick or lampstand can be called a menorah. It doesn't have to be this one that was in the temple, but any lampstand could be a menorah, I guess. But it's the Hebrew word menorah. So I may use the different words. It's the same thing: candlestick, menorah, lampstand. It's this menorah here. Now, the lampstand, if you remember back in the building of the tabernacle in the book of Exodus in the wilderness, there was a lampstand in the tabernacle. There was also an altar of incense, and there was a table of showbread. These are the three elements that were in the tabernacle proper, the main tent of the tabernacle. Then there was a veil, and then on the other side of that veil was the Holy of Holies, and that's where the Ark of the Covenant was. But here on the left-hand side is the tabernacle proper on this side of the veil, and in there was the lampstand, the altar of incense, and the table of showbread. The lampstand clearly, I think, was what illuminated the tabernacle. It's what gave light when it was lit. It gave light inside the tabernacle. Well, what was it made of? This was the design of the original lampstand according to the book of Exodus. You will make a lampstand of pure gold. The lampstand in its base and its shaft are to be made of hammered work. Its cups, its bulbs, and its flowers shall be of one piece with it. 6 branches shall go out from its sides, 3 branches of the lampstand from its one side, 3 branches of the lampstand from its other side. So it's a lampstand, you got a lampstand in the middle, and then there's 3 branches on each side for a total of 7, what I call branches or stems that make up, and it's made of pure gold, this lampstand that was in the original tabernacle. It also says in Exodus 27:20, the fuel that was used in the lampstand, you shall charge the sons of Israel, and they will bring you clear oil of beaten olives for the light to make a lamp burn continually. So the fuel for the lampstand was olive oil, came from the olive trees, was olive oil. That's what was the fuel for the lampstand. Interestingly, I found this out too looking at this. In Solomon's temple, I think there was I get the idea that there was the main lampstand that came out of the tabernacle, but then in the temple of Solomon, um, he also made 10 more lampstands. Um, there were 5 on one side and 5 on the other side. And I then think you had the main one that was there. So I think there were a total of 11, but I don't know if they were the exact same size, but there were 10 more lampstands in the temple of Solomon. We know from when in 586 BC, the temple of Solomon was destroyed. The Babylonians destroyed Jerusalem, destroyed the temple, and they carried away items to Babylon. And herein is what it tells you in Jeremiah 72, what they took with them into Babylon. Now the bronze pillars, which belongs to the house of Yahweh and stands in the bronze sea, which were the house of the Lord, Chaldeans broke in pieces and carried all their bronze to Babylon. They also took away the pots, the shovels, the snuffers, the basins, the pans, all the bronze vessels which were used in the temple service. The captain of the guard also took away the bowls, the fire pins, the basins, the pots, the lampstands, the pans, the drink offering, the bowls, which was fine gold of what was fine flour, fine silver. So these lampstands in the temple were carried away into Babylon. What I don't know is when they came back, they were given some of the gold and the elements of the temple that they brought with them back to Jerusalem. I don't know if they brought back, if they had one of these lampstands. That would have been nice. I just don't have anything that I can see that documents that they did. But then they wouldn't have had to make a new lampstand if they had one that was actually brought, that was carried away with to Babylon 70 years before. But so anyway, that's a little of the lampstand, and it represents the temple. It's that's what they carried away, and here is a drawing in 70 A.D. This temple that they're building at Zerubbabel in 19 B.C. King Herod rebuilt this temple of Zerubbabel's temple, built a new temple, which according to the Gospels, it was 40 years in the making when Jesus comes around. It was still being built, I guess. This temple of Herod's temple at the time of Jesus. And this is a depiction of a famous painting by Francesco Hayes of the Romans. The Romans defeated and destroyed that temple in 70 AD. And I want to zoom in on something because this is what this represents there in this picture is the Romans taking the golden lampstand away to Rome. Again, it kind of represented the Jewish worship that it's gone, it's going away. The temple, the candle is being removed, the temple is destroyed, and that's what this candlestick represented. The general of the army was Titus under Emperor Vespasian at the time, and in Rome, in 81 AD, just 11 years after the destruction of the temple, this Arch of Titus was built in Rome, which commemorated the destruction of all the defeat of the Jews by Titus and Emperor Vespasian. And in here, in this arch, this is carved into the south inner panel, showing the fall of Jerusalem. And there you see in this carving, they're carrying away that golden candlestick, that 7-branch candlestick. So it represents the Jewish having their temple. So it's significant here, I think, that this is what is in this picture, this candlestick. And now I'm going to go back to this actually. When we did the measuring hand, I talked a little bit about the Temple Institute currently in Jerusalem. But it's this golden candlestick that got me even into looking at the whole Temple Institute and what's planned. Um, in here, you can go to study tools, and in this website, you can go to all the different vessels that they've built and everything. And I was this this picture of this golden candlestick. This is my picture. This is my picture that I took in 2006 when I went on the tour to Israel. I don't know if you ever go. Both times when I went to Israel, we did Jerusalem last. You went all up to see a Galilee, down to the Dead Sea. You went all the surrounding towns, and then you end up in Jerusalem after being there 10 days, and I think one was 14 days. So in every spot you go, you're getting up early in the morning, and you go and write it till nighttime, and it's information overload, and you're just getting every day. There's so much, and everyone has to talk about their specific. You got the people on the bus, you have the group leaders. When you go to specific places, they've got their spokesman sharing with you about what you're looking at. And by the time I got to Jerusalem at this time, I got to tell you, I was I was zoning. I was zoned out. I was like, I was done. I'm in Jerusalem. I don't even know where. Okay, I'm in the old city of Jerusalem. I knew that. I was in the Jewish quarter, but like I don't even know what I'm looking at. I'm just like kind of zoning. I'm not paying any attention. And then our guide, we're sitting right in front of this golden candlestick, and he says, "Here is the golden candlestick, which has been built by the Temple Institute. This has been made under the exact uh, specifications of the golden candlestick that was in the temple and was in the tabernacle at the time of Moses. They've remade it according to the specifications, and this is going to go into a new temple that we're going to build." And I didn't, I was just like, suddenly I woke up. I woke up from my slumber, my zoning. I was like, what? What did he just say? Because I had heard that there was this idea of, the elements of the temple and that they were, but I thought it was like this little underground group that nobody took seriously. No, this Temple Institute. This is in the Jewish Museum in the Jewish Quarter, supported by the Jewish government. I mean, this is right in your face. This is the golden candlestick we're going to put in the temple, and it woke me up. I was like, whoa! I was not aware of that. That you guys were that close to having all the implements of the temple. But that's what got me interested. This right here is what me interested in looking at the Temple Institute, staring at this golden candlestick right in front of my face. But here is what is written in the Temple Institute about this candlestick that today sits in the old city of Jerusalem in the Jewish quarter. The menorah, which stands today in Jerusalem's old city Jewish quarter, overlooking the Temple Mount, is the work of the Temple Institute. It was created exclusively to be used in the new Holy Temple. The menorah was painstakingly crafted after years of extensive research by the Temple Institute's full time staff of researchers. The conclusions upon which the construction of the menorah was based took into account archaeological evidence and, of course, the Halachic Jewish law requirements, as first delineated in the book of Exodus and further explicated by Jewish sages. Now, check this out. The menorah weighs 1/2 ton. It contains 40 kilograms of approximately 24 karat gold. Its estimated value is approximately $3 million. So you can see why the Babylonians were happy to take these golden candlesticks away. But that's what we're talking about. And so that's what is in this vision. this is just a note. I don't know if this has anything. I don't really understand the correlation here. Maybe someone else does. But in the book of Revelation, John sees seven lampstands. And in Revelation 12, 120, it says that the seven lampstands are the seven churches of Asia there in the book of Revelation. I wonder if that has a correlation to this. I haven't figured it out. I don't know if there is, but just put that out there. Maybe there's something to that, but I don't know. So, anyways, I just wanted to point that out. So, then what I thought I would do, and this I did, I didn't look at anybody else's work. I didn't read any commentaries or look at any other pictures. I said, I want to look at this vision myself. Let me just look at this vision and try and get an idea what exactly is Zechariah seeing here. So, what do you see? And he said, I see a lampstand all of gold. Okay, I got that. In fact, I personally have seen the lampstand all of gold in the old city of Jerusalem. And that's what that looks like. So he sees this lampstand all of gold. All right. And on top of it is a bowl. Now it doesn't describe the bowl. I found a gold bowl, so I put that. Maybe I don't know if it was gold or not, but he says there was a bowl. There's a bowl on top of the candlesticks, right? And then it says there were seven spouts belonging to each lamp, which are on top of it. So I get the idea. This is what I came up with: is that out of this bowl, there's like these spouts, or I think pipes that come out of the bowl that feed the seven lamps. These seven pipes or spouts they feed the seven lamps that are on top of it. Then later on, he says there's olive trees. Here's some olive trees, little cartoon versions of olive trees. There's olive trees, one on the left side and one on the right side. So you got the candlestick, you got the bowl with seven spouts, and you got an olive tree, two olive trees on each side of this. And then it says that there are golden pipes which empty the golden oil from themselves. So from themselves, meaning the olive trees, come two golden pipes that empty their olive oil into the bowl that then trickles down, and it fuels the seven lamps, which is the olive oil is what the lampstand, it was the fuel. It's what it burned off. So I think the best that I understand, this is what Zechariah saw. Now, after I drew my little picture here and put it together, then I went out on the internet to see what other people came up with. And I looked at many different things, and they all came up with pretty much the same thing. I looked at several. Here's just one, but you can see it's pretty much the same thing I came up with. This is what someone had written, I found out on the internet. The two olive trees emptied into the bowl, and then it spouts to the seven candles and the seven candlesticks. So I'm like, hey, that's what I came up with. I think that's what this picture is. This is what Zechariah saw. He saw this vision. So now you got to say to yourself, what in the world is this? What's this supposed to mean? I mean, what does that mean? And that's a good question, right? And Zechariah actually asked the question. Zechariah 4 and 5 says, then I said to the angel who was speaking with me, what are these, my Lord? So the angel who was speaking with me answered and said, do you not know what these are? And I said, no, I don't have any idea what this is. No, I don't know what you're talking about. Now, I got to tell you, you look at, I think of the dreams of Pharaoh that he had. And he had, there were 7 ears of corn, and then there were 7 scraggly corn, and the scraggly 7 ears overcame the rich ones. There were 7 healthy cows, and then there were 7 very lean cows, and then the lean cows devoured the 7 healthy cows. And he didn't have anybody interpret, and Joseph interprets. And I kind of get that interpretation from Joseph. Okay, 7 years, there's 7 years of plenty, 7 years of famine, and the 7 years of famine are going to overcome the 7 years of plenty. I get that. I kind of get how that vision um, represents that. Okay, that makes sense to me. Or like the dream of Nebuchadnezzar, you got the head of gold, arm breastplate, breastplate of silver. You got thighs of iron. And you got then he couldn't remember the dream. Daniel tells him the dream and gives him the interpretation that it had a gold represents your kingdom, and that these are the kingdoms, the last kingdoms that are going to rule, with the 10 toes at the bottom, and then the rock is good. I kind of get that vision. You know what I mean? Once it's explained, it's like, oh, okay. I see that. I can see how that is. Okay. But I got to tell you, there is no way in the world that I would come up with the interpretation of what this is. And it's one of those things that I'm very aware of as we go through this, is that only God really knows the mysteries and the secrets that he has put into his word. And, we do the best we can. We study the word, but in the end, we could be wrong about a lot of things because God knows what he means. So what does this represent? And here's what it represents. Then he said to me, this vision you're seeing, this is the word of Yahweh to Zerubbabel, saying, not by might nor by my spirit, says Yahweh of hosts. What are you, O great mountain, before Zerubbabel? You will become a plain, and he will bring forth the top stone with shouts of grace, grace to it. And the word of Yahweh came to me, saying, the hands of Zerubbabel have laid the foundation of the house, and his hands will finish it. Then you will know that Yahweh of hosts has sent me to you. For who has despised the day of small things? But these 7 will be glad when they see the plumb line in the hand of Zerubbabel. These are the eyes of Yahweh, which range to and fro throughout the earth. The 4th vision, last time, was totally directed to Yeshua, the high priest. And remember, in that vision, it was all about that he had filthy clothing, and there was an accuser standing before him, and then the filthy clothing's put away. He's putting on priest garments and the crown, and his iniquity is taken away. He is anointed the high priest, and then that Joshua and his friends represent the branch, the stone, the servant of Yahweh that's coming in the future. So that was the 5th vision. That was all about the high priest. This vision is about Zerubbabel, the governor, the seed of David, who is the Christ line. So this is the governmental ruler. You have the high priest in the last vision. This vision is all about Zerubbabel, about the one who is going to build the temple, the one who is the commander, the ruler, the king, the governor that's in charge. And this is for him. And it's the word of Yahweh. This represents the word of Yahweh being spoken to him, and that his success is not going to come by his own might. It's not going to come by his own power. It's going to come by God's Spirit. That's where his power is going to come from. And it said Zerubbabel laid the foundation, and he will finish it. Remember, over 10 years before, he was in charge of laying the foundation, and now they're building it again. And now they're 3 months into it, and this vision is to Zerubbabel that the word of Yahweh says, you're going to get this done. Not because you're so great, not because of your power, but because I said so. Because Yahweh spoke it, this temple is going to get built, and Zerubbabel, the governor, you are going to lay the final stone. You're going to put the top stone on it. Your hands will finish it. This temple is going to be completed. That's what the vision means. One thing I wanted to show out here is in this part of this vision that I think this is the wrong translation in the NASB. It says, "For who has despised the day of small things, but these seven will be glad when they see the plumb line in the hand of Zerubbabel. The plumb line. Hmm. Uh, the NASB uses this word plumb line. There's four for the REV uses the word plumb line. The ESV uses the word plumb line. And the King James versions use the word plummet, which is basically a plumb line. So those four versions translate this as plumb line. But not all versions translate it like this. The NIV translates this word the chosen capstone. The New English translation says the tin tablet. The New Catholic Bible says the chosen stone. And the English translation of the Hebrew Tanakh says when they see the stone of distinction. So plumb line, it's the two Hebrew words. Basically, it's stone and ally, the ally stone or the tin stone, if you want literally what the Hebrew is here. A plumb bob or a plumb line or a plummet is a weight, usually with a pointed tip on the bottom, suspended from the string. It's a reference line, and you use a plumb line if you ever did any of this carpentry stuff. You hold the plumb line up and you let it sit till it stops moving, and it gives you a straight line. So you get it like you want to get your wall to be straight. If you say, "Is it plumb?" Like you want the law. So it's part again, as when we're talking about in the I think the second division measuring the temple. I think that's a tape measure. It's a measuring device in the building process. So that would make sense that we're talking about another building device, but I don't think that's the point of this vision as we've read. A capstone, on the other hand, or the top stone, the stone of distinction, the capstone derives terms from the final decorative coping or capstone, used to complete a building or a monument, a finishing stone of a structure, the crowning achievement, the point element of an event. And I think this makes much more sense than a plumb line. We're talking about that Zerubbabel is going to finish it. So should it be plumb line or capstone? I think the context provides the understanding. He said to me, "This is the word of Yahweh to Zerubbabel. What are you, O great mountain?" And I think great mountain here is Jerusalem. It's Mount Moriah, and it's going to be a plain that they build the temple up on. You will become a plain, and he's going to bring forth the top stone, meaning he's going to finish it. He's going to put on the top stone of the temple, saying grace to it. Verse 9, the hands of Zerubbabel have laid the foundations of this house, and his hands will finish it. It's talking about finishing it. For who has despised the day of small things, but these seven will be glad when they see the plumb line in the hand of Zerubbabel. I don't think it's the plumb line. I think the word top stone is the word stone and top, Rosh Haben. Plumb line is the tin stone, the ally stone, not plumb line. I think these two stones are talking about the same thing. The top stone is the tin stone. I actually wonder if like at the top, if there's like a decorative stone that was put at the top. And it's talking about completion. And that's the whole point of this vision. Zerubbabel, you're going to finish this. You're going to finish this temple. You started it. You laid the foundation. You're going to put on the top stone. You're going to put on the tin stone. And they're going to rejoice when this happens. So I just wanted to point that out. I think it should be tin stone. If you want to go, I think it's better just go with the literal Hebrew, tin stone. So, although I do like that stone of distinction that the Tanakh says. And then it says this, these seven will be glad. These seven are the eyes of the Lord, which range to and fro from the earth. I think these seven, for that time, at the time of Zerubbabel, are referring back to the verses we looked last week or last session. The seven eyes of the stones from Zechariah 3:9. And in the context there, we're talking about these associates of Joshua who were overseeing the building of the temple. In the future, there's going to be seven spirits, which is another thought. But for this time, these seven are going to rejoice when they see that tin stone, that capstone placed by Zerubbabel. You have this other phrase here. It says, "Who has despised the day of small things?" We looked at this a little bit when we were studying this, and I think this is interesting. Despise the day of small things. What does that mean? Um, the Hebrew is meaning to despise, contempt, so hold as insignificant. The day just means the day or the time of year. Small things are small, insignificant, unimportant. Holding that what they're doing is just a small thing. It's insignificant. This temple they're trying to build here under Zerubbabel. Um, who has despised the day of small things? But these seven will be glad. NASB. NET. Who dares to make light of small things? These seven eyes will joyfully look on. New Catholic Bible. Those who speak disparagingly on that day of small things, beginnings will rejoice. For who has despised the day of small things shall rejoice. Remember what Haggai, remember back on the first or second session, we looked at Haggai, and he made this comment in Haggai chapter 2. He said, "Who is left among you who saw this temple in its former glory?" Referring back to Solomon's temple. He said, "How do you see it now?" They're trying to lay the foundation. There's nothing there. He said, "Does it seem like nothing in comparison?" In other words, what they're doing now seems like a small thing. When these guys who had seen the original temple of Solomon, to think that what they're doing really means anything. What are we trying to do here, right? It's like, come on. What are we? We just came out of captivity. We're going to rebuild the temple. You can see it's like just a small thing. It's just like nothing in comparison. You can't, what you're doing is just nothing. I can see that thought, despise the small things. Specifically in Ezra, it's these associates, these colleagues, these friends of Joshua who were the ones that were mentioned that had seen the former temple in its glory. Ezra 3:12, it says, "Yet many of the priests and Levites and heads of fathers, the old men who had seen the first temple, wept with a loud voice when the foundation of the house was laid before their eyes." So these associates of Joshua, these Levites, these priests, some of them had been around at the first temple. And it was like, in comparison to Solomon's temple, what are they doing? Right? What are we trying to do here? You kind of get that. You understand what I'm saying? You see that despise these small things. So I'd like to just read a little bit about Solomon's temple, just to give you a little comparison. In First Kings, it says that there were 30,000 laborers. He sent 10,000 a month in relays to Lebanon. He had 70,000 transporters. He had 80,000 hewers of stone, 3,300 chief deputies over the project. They quarried stones, costly stones, to lay the foundation. He built the walls of cedar. They were cedar all open. It was in verse 20, length was 20 cubits, in width 20 cubits, and he overlaid it with pure gold. He overlaid the altar with cedar. He overlaid the inner of the house with pure gold. I mean, what was this Solomon's temple? And it just, all the description here. He overlaid it with pure, the whole thing was gold and cedar, and it was magnificent. And I'm not going to read all this. You can go back if you want to read 1 Kings chapter 6, really gives you the description. But in verse 38, it says, "In the 11th year, in the month of Bul, which is the 8th month, the house was finished through all its parts according to all its plans." So it was 7 years in the building. Solomon's temple took 7 years. He would send 10,000 people a month up to Lebanon to get stuff. He had 70,000 people. He had 20,000 people. With these guys here, they have total men, women, the people, they had 42,000. So it's like, what they're doing, compared to Solomon's temple, it would seem like it would be a small thing. That what they're doing is a small thing. And I think that this vision, this um, uh, admonition to Zerubbabel is this isn't a small thing. This is a big deal. You are rebuilding the temple of God. It's like, wake up. This is what you have been called. The Spirit of God is going to do this, and you're going to build this temple. It's not a small thing. Now, I don't think this temple met as far as the gold and all the pomp and circumstance of Solomon's temple, but it nonetheless was a large temple, a large project that was done. So, who has despised the day of small things? In the ESV, it says that when they see this capstone in the hand of Zerubbabel, those who had despised the small things, those who looked at what they were doing as insignificant, when this is built, they're going to rejoice. Same thing it says in the New Catholic Bible. When these who had spoken disparagingly about what's going on, they will rejoice to see the chosen stone in the hands of Zerubbabel. And in the English translations, the Hebrew Tanakh, when they see the stone of distinction in the hand of Zerubbabel, they will rejoice. So it might have looked like it was going to be a small thing. Maybe some of these who had seen the temple before thought what they're doing is insignificant. But when they see Zerubbabel put the finishing touch on this temple that we're building, they're going to rejoice. And they did. In Ezra 6:14, after 3.5 years through the prophesying of Haggai and Zechariah, they were successful in building the temple. We know it happened in the 6th year of Darius. And if you follow this in Ezra, after they did this, they finished it in the month Adar. The next month is the month Nisan. And then on the 14th, 15th of Nisan, the 14th of Nisan at midnight, they sacrificed the Passover lamb. They had a Passover, and then they had the Feast of Unleavened Bread. And it says here at the end of this, they observed the Feast of Unleavened Bread with joy, for the Lord had caused them to rejoice. Here they built a temple. They had a Passover at this temple, built. They're back in Jerusalem. They have the temple, and they rejoiced. Just like what this vision is talking about. That when 70 years after Solomon's temple was destroyed, they rejoiced when this temple was finished. And when Zerubbabel places the capstone, the stone of distinction, that tin stone on the top, and finishes the temple. So what are these two olive trees? Then I said, what are these two olive trees on the right of the lampstand and on its left? And I answered the second time and said to him, what are the two olive branches? So now what are the olive trees? What are these? And he answered me saying, do you not know what these are? And I said, no, my Lord. Then he said, these are the two anointed ones who are standing by the Lord of the whole earth. So the two olive trees are the two anointed ones. Now, what does that mean? What are these olive trees all about? Two anointed ones. Many think that these two olive trees, these two anointed ones, are talking about Zerubbabel and Joshua. These two, the governor and the high priest. In the Old Testament, both the high priest and the king were the Lord's anointed. That's the Hebrew word Mashiach, the Messiah. And there are many commentaries you'll see that think that these two olive trees represent Zerubbabel and Joshua, these two anointed ones. I don't think that's what these two olive trees represent. And here's why. The words anointed here in Zechariah is not the Hebrew word Mashiach. The words anointed ones in the Hebrew is Ben Yitzhar, which means sons of fresh oil. It doesn't mean Mashiach, it means the sons of fresh oil. These are the two sons of fresh oil who are standing by the Lord of the whole earth. Sons of fresh oil. From this definition and from what this vision depicts, it seems to me that the olive trees or the olive branches are not the ones being anointed, but rather the olive trees are the ones doing the anointing. They're the sons of fresh oil, bringing the oil, supporting what's going on in the vision, in this candlestick. When David selected his son Solomon to replace him as king, he was anointed by a priest and a prophet. 1 Kings 1:34. Let Zadok the priest and Nathan the prophet anoint him as king over Israel. These two brought the oil and anointed Solomon. At this time of the rebuilding the temple, there's also a prophet, Haggai, and a priest, Zechariah, supporting Zerubbabel and Joshua and the Jews in rebuilding the temple. In Ezra 6, the elders of the Jews were successful in the building through the prophesying of Haggai the prophet and Zechariah the son of Iddo. Remember what the vision is? The vision is, this is the word of Yahweh to Zerubbabel. Well, who was giving them the word of Yahweh? Who was prophesying to them the word of Yahweh? It was Haggai and Zechariah, the two prophets who are the sons of fresh oil supporting the work of the temple. And that's who I think the olive trees are. With this understanding, then, it makes so much more sense with the dual prophetic fulfillment that's described in the future in the book of Revelation at the building of a new temple. In Revelation 11 is this building of this new temple. And it says, leave out the court which is outside the temple and do not measure it, for it has been given to the nations, and they will tread underfoot the holy city for 42 months. And I will grant authority to my two witnesses, and they will prophesy for 1,260 days, 3.5 years, clothed in sackcloth. Verse 4, these are the two olive trees, the two lampstands that stand before the Lord of all the earth. And when they finish their testimony, the beast that comes up out of the abyss will make war with them, overcome them, and kill them, and their dead bodies will lie in the streets of the great city, which is mystically called Sodom and Egypt, where also their Lord was crucified. So in the future, if this is literal, there is going to be a new temple built, and there are going to be two olive trees. Now, I think, though, that these olive trees in the future, the way this is written in Revelation, are like the direct antithesis of what the two prophets, Haggai and Zechariah, were supporting the work of the temple going on. They were supporting the work that was occurring in Jerusalem. I think in the future, these two prophets, these two olive trees, are not going to be supporting it. They're going to be speaking out against the work that's going on in Jerusalem. It's like a direct antithesis of what's actually the future of what this is a type for. So anyway, that's the best I understand about the two olive trees. So what can we learn about the time of Haggai and Zechariah? In this fifth vision, Zechariah sees a golden lampstand with 7 lamps. On each side are 2 olive trees, emptying into a bowl that empties into 7 lamps. Zechariah asks what this means, and he's told that this is the word of Yahweh to Zerubbabel, that it is not by his power or might, but by the Spirit of God. Zerubbabel laid the foundation of the temple, and he will finish it, putting on the capstone. Further, the 2 olive trees are the sons of fresh oil, the anointed ones, standing before the whole earth. Zechariah and Haggai are 2 prophets providing the word to Yahweh, from Yahweh to Zerubbabel to build and finish the temple. This would have been strong encouragement to continue on until completion, and these seven will rejoice when they see the capstone installed. It won't be a small thing, it's going to be a big deal when this happens. What can we learn about future prophecy? The one thing I see is that in the future, there's an indication a future temple will be built. In Revelation 11, we're told these two olive trees are two witnesses that will prophesy in Jerusalem at the end of the age for 3.5 years. However, those two prophets seeming to be speaking against the activities going on in the great city, which is mystically called Sodom in Egypt. And what can we learn for us today? And this I thought of, and this maybe I think we are the temple of God today, right? We are. And Jesus, he is the representative of Zerubbabel, right? Jesus is uh, of that Christ line of the seed of David that is building his church. He's building his church. He's building his temple. We are this building, and as we speak, as we live, we are part of his plan to build the temple. As sinners repent, return, they become part of Christ's church. They become part of the temple. And I think the angels in heaven rejoice when that happens. And should be steadfast working together until the end. And I kind of wonder in this thought of Christ being the head of the temple is when will Christ put on the capstone, right? When is Christ going to put on that stone of distinction, meaning it's finished, it's complete? I think of in the book of Revelation, it says, when the seventh angel sounds, it says the mystery of God will be finished. And I think the capstone of Christ as the head of the body, building his temple, is going to come into fruition when he comes back at the sounding of the seventh angel, the last trump sounds, and all the people will be raised from the dead, and Christ will come and reign on his church. I think that's the capstone moment for Christ and his church. And then I do think the seven angels are going to rejoice when they see Christ in his glory as the head of church, as king over all the earth. So there's a little bit about the the lampstand flanked by two golden candlesticks.